Clocks stopped at 6:14 p.m. inside Florida State Prison. A curtain slid open, and behind the glass, witnesses leaned forward as the air in the room turned heavy. Norman Mearle Grim Jr., who had lived half his life under the shadow of a sentence, closed his eyes for the last time. But before that moment came, there was another night, 27 years earlier, when a door opened in a quiet Pensacola neighborhood, and a life that had barely begun was stolen. Her name was Cynthia Campbell, a young attorney, driven, kind, a neighbor everyone knew by her smile. In June 1998, she disappeared. The next day, a fisherman spotted something floating beneath the bridge. Her body, broken, tied, discarded. The medical examiner's report read like a storm. 18 blows, 11 stab wounds, 7 of them to the heart. Whoever did this hadn't lost control. They had chosen violence. Police followed the smallest things. Threads of fabric, fragments of tape, rope fibers, until every trail led to the same house, Norman Grim's. He had chatted with Cynthia that day, told her he'd painted his living room, asked about her new car. When detectives came to question him, he ran. That was the first sign. Inside his home, they found materials that matched those binding Cynthia's wrists and ankles. The evidence told a story his words never could. In court, prosecutors described a neighbor's kindness turned into a trap. The jury listened, stone-faced, as photos and testimony stacked like bricks. The verdict came fast. Guilty of murder, guilty of sexual battery, death recommended by a vote of 12-0. In 2000, the judge agreed. From then on, Grim's life was measured in hearings, motions, and dates that kept shifting further away. Years passed, governors changed, appeals came and went, but Grim's case never disappeared. It just slowed, gathering dust in the corners of Florida's legal machinery. He spent more than 2 decades in a cell no wider than his outstretched arms. Sometimes he wrote letters, sometimes he didn't. Somewhere along the line, he stopped fighting. He waived his last appeals, refused clemency, and told his lawyers he was ready. When the warrant was signed in 2025, there were no protests big enough to stop it. Outside the prison, a few dozen people held candles. Some prayed for Cynthia's family, others prayed for Grim's soul. Inside, the staff prepared the 3-drug protocol: etomidate to sedate, rocuronium to paralyze, potassium chloride to stop the heart. The witnesses entered at 6 p.m. sharp. Grim lay strapped to the gurney, head tilted toward the ceiling. When asked for final words, he said nothing, not a word. The syringe line hissed softly. His chest rose once, twice. Then it was over. The doctor nodded. 6:14 p.m., officially dead. Florida had carried out its 15th execution of the year, the most in modern history. The Department of Corrections released a brief statement. Sentence carried out, no complications. But outside, in the dark beyond the walls, nothing about it felt uncomplicated. Cynthia's family issued a short note of their own. We have waited 27 years. Tonight, we hope for peace, reporters read it aloud on camera. For them, maybe peace meant silence. For others, silence felt like another punishment. Proof that even when justice is served, something stays unsettled. A few blocks away, a small group from a local church stood with a cardboard sign. Mercy belongs to no one, unless it belongs to all. They said Grim had once served in the Navy, that he'd written about wanting forgiveness but didn't know how to ask for it. Maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't. The record doesn't show much beyond the crime. And yet, standing there in the aftermath, it's impossible not to wonder what we keep achieving each time a needle finds a vein. The evidence was strong, the verdict certain. But what does closure really mean? For Cynthia's parents, maybe it meant the state finally finished what it promised. For Grim's few remaining relatives, it meant the system took everything. For the rest of us, it's another reminder that justice and peace are not always the same thing. Outside the prison, the last of the candles flickered out. Reporters packed their gear. The sky turned from deep blue to black. Somewhere, a highway hummed. Another date will be set. Another name will replace his on the calendar. And still the question lingers. If every execution is supposed to balance the scales, why do they never stay even? Cynthia Campbell's name deserves to be remembered, not as evidence, not as a headline, but as a person who never got to finish her story. Norman Mearle Grim Jr.'s name will stay in the records, a reminder of what happens when cruelty crosses a neighbor's fence. Between them lies 27 years of grief, law, silence, and debate that no verdict can erase. When the curtain closed and the witnesses were escorted out, one reporter wrote that the room felt heavier than when they entered. Maybe that's the truth of all of this. Justice can be carried out, but it can't lift the weight it creates. A clock stopped at 6:14 p.m. A name was crossed off a list, and a story that began with a doorbell and a neighbor's smile ended in silence.